Today, I'm ranking the top 10 performances from one of my favorite actors of all time, Rachel McAdams. To me, Rachel McAdams is basically the Julia Roberts of her generation. I think she's one of the great genre actors of the last 25 years. I think she can do anything and balance so many different tones. I've seen her play between sincerity and chaos, camp and vulnerability, drama and comedy at a very high level. She basically defines the tone of whatever movie she's in. And this was a challenging list to come up with because I think her resume speaks for itself, but it's also very difficult to rank these movies. I have a personal connection to so many of them. I was looking at her career and I saw from 2004 to 2005, she did Mean Girls, The Notebook, Wedding Crashers, The Family Stone, and Redeye, all back to back. That's insane. That's a Hall of Fame acting run that she doesn't really get a lot of credit for today. She's had a 25-year career, has gone on to gross $3 billion in box office. She earned an Oscar nomination from Spotlight. She's basically doing whatever she wants at this point, including incredible genre work as of late with her recent film Send Help that I saw last night, which she co-stars in with Dylan O'Brien. And I thought that movie ruled, and you will certainly see it on this list. And quick disclaimer, this is a top 10 ranking. This is not a full filmography deep dive. So if you have a favorite that I left out, let me know in the comments. Let's get into it. At number 10, we have Southpaw. Now, this is going to confuse some people because it is a Jake Gyllenhaal boxing blockbuster where he is tragically depressed and has abs and he's screaming into a camera for 2 hours. And so you might be thinking, why is Rachel McAdams' 10th best performance Southpaw? But she is the emotional spine of this otherwise pretty formulaic movie, and she's only on screen for like 15 minutes, if that. And the scenes that people remember from Southpaw have nothing really to do with boxing or Jake Gyllenhaal. They have everything to do with what McAdams is doing emotionally in this film and her physical performance, so check it out again if it's been a while. At number 9, we have Wedding Crashers. This is probably the pinnacle of studio comedies in the 21st century for a lot of people. McAdams could have just played a role in this movie where she's a straight-laced kind of love interest next to Owen Wilson that's a little bit tropier, one note, but the chemistry works so well in this film and it feels like a romantic comedy because she plays into the sincerity of the story and not the irony of it, which is more challenging than people think, especially when you have Vince Vaughn and Wilson and Bradley Cooper doing bits for basically 2 hours as McAdams is grounding the story. At number 8, we have Redeye. Now, this movie is so much fun and I think under-discussed in the landscape of horror in the 21st century. Rachel McAdams is in pure genre mode here. She's so controlled and reactive and physically specific without ever slipping into that final girl cliche you would see in some other lesser movies in this genre. And watching her recalibrate in this film from like this polite civility of a well-to-do working woman in the early 2000s to then this like survival mode with this tragic past that's slowly revealed throughout the movie is what makes the film so tense instead of feeling like gimmicky like a lot of movies do in this space, especially opposite a great unhinged Cillian Murphy. This is an incredible two-hander and a really underrated movie. And at number 7, we have Send Help, her newest film that's releasing wide this week. And at 47 years old, Rachel McAdams is asked to do a lot here. She's asked to run around half naked on a beach with Dylan O'Brien, trying to convey that she might want to love him or kill him at the same time. And she absolutely nails the absurdity of this screenplay. And she fully commits to the Sam Raimi tonal tightrope that you need to commit to make his movies work. And she balances terror and comedy without really winking at the camera until she wants to, and she certainly does more than a few times. And she's doing also like real character work in the center of this bizarre story, and she gets to then play in this like campy sandbox in more meaningful ways, which is exactly why the movie works. She brings a level of groundedness, but she can be heightened when she wants to. At number 6, we have Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I think Rachel McAdams was robbed of an Oscar nomination for this performance. She brings a very gentle, reassuring, present, parental dynamic with her daughter in this movie that is never like saccharine or tropey. It's really just a performance that is about emotional availability and the responsibility of parents to be emotionally available. And she also cries a lot at the end of this movie, and she's an all-time crier, which I've not said yet, and she's like truly a Hall of Fame crier. And every time I see Rachel McAdams cry in a movie, I also then feel contractually obligated to cry watching the movie, and I definitely did in this film. Okay, we're to the top 5. This is where it gets very difficult with the ranking. At number 5, we're going to go Spotlight. This is McAdams' only Oscar-nominated performance, and it's the opposite of what you'd expect of a prestige political drama, because this role requires a lot of restraint. She doesn't give big speeches or have like massive emotional breakdowns in this film. There's not like a great Julia Roberts, Aaron Brockovich moment for her. There could have been, and that would have been great too, because Aaron Brockovich is a masterpiece. But instead, I think McAdams does something different here. It's a different approach. She trusts the material. She lets the moral urgency of these survivors and their stories do the work for her. And it's really her character's ability to listen and process and react that is the incredibly disciplined part of her performance, where I am always shocked watching this movie because most actors or actresses in general would go big with a performance like this. And some actors certainly did go big in this movie. At number 4, we have Game Night, which has to be one of the great studio comedies of the last decade. And I think Rachel McAdams is actually giving one of the great comedy performances of this century. She totally commits completely to playing this tightly wound, silly, middle-class person thrown into very real danger, selling every absurd beat of that conceit. And you have so many memorable sequences, from the Pulp Fiction bar sequence to the Jason Bateman moment outside the convenience store where she cuts open his forearm, or when she's like fighting that villain outside of a plane and he gets sucked into the plane engine. The comedic timing from her in this movie is just unreal. And I think because Jesse Plemons is also giving an all-time comedic performance, her comedic genius here is often overlooked. Okay, we're down to our top 3. At number 3, we have The Notebook. Now, I rewatched this movie last night because I did not know where to place it on this list, and holy shit, I was floored. McAdams does something so emotionally sincere here to an otherwise very cheesy character and cheesy screenplay. And so whether you want to resist this movie or not, which I'd understand if you do, you have to give flowers to McAdams for making this character so iconic. I think she actually does a lot of the legwork for Gosling in this movie because he has his moments, but she's excellent in this. Also, the fact that she and Gosling reportedly had issues with each other while filming this movie is insane because the chemistry is unreal. And then the ending with the whole like, read this to me and I'll come back to you in Noah's memory book. Oh my God. Okay, at number 2, I went back and forth with this being my number 1 pretty often. I ultimately put it at my number 2 because I had to remind myself I'm not ranking my favorite movies ever. I'm ranking my favorite Rachel McAdams performances. So at number 2, I'm going About Time. This is not only one of my favorite movies of all time, it's my favorite romantic comedy of all time, full stop. Even though it is a sneaky father-son movie too, so you could call it that. This movie has a lot of layers, emotionally, intimately, romantically. And even though it's a pretty one-note character for McAdams, I think that's why it's at my number 2 spot. She does the most with it. I mean, in this film, you have to believe that Domhnall Gleeson would rather choose Rachel McAdams over time travel and over Margot Robbie. And if you doubt that for a second, the movie does not work. And because McAdams is so funny, adorable, effortlessly smart, it's just a very Meg Ryan coded performance from her. You believe in all of his choices in this movie, and I think she's one of the most lovable characters I've ever seen in this genre. Okay, at number 1, in my favorite performances of all time from Rachel McAdams, we have Mean Girls. Get in, loser, we're going shopping. Of course, it's Regina George. What else would it be? This is one of the great comic performances in the history of cinema. Stamp that, put it on the 4K Mean Girls. It is a masterclass on so many levels. The vocal control, the kind of facial precision from McAdams and her ability to like weaponize all of her charm and the wig. I mean, she's basically playing like evil Cher from Clueless, and McAdams doesn't just steal the movie from every other actor in the film. She also creates an archetype that pop culture is still trying to copy 20 years later. Okay, that was my Rachel McAdams top 10 performances. Honestly, we could have done a top 20. That's how deep her filmography is. Let me know what I left out. Let me know what your number 1 is. And go see McAdams this week and send help. It's a performance that is deserving of seeing in theater. She's doing the most. You won't regret it.